Everyone, welcome to Empowering Modern Analytics Strategies with Data Products, sponsored by Starburst. Today's speakers are Jay Piccionary, Research Analyst at Eckerson Group, and Vishal Singh, Head of Data Products at Starburst.
To be here with you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise, Jay, I'm pretty excited about the whole build-up and the conversation on data products.
Yeah. So for everybody's edification, we're going to have a conversation that, as opposed to a formal presentation, we'll go through a number of topics about data products. I'll tee them up with some background, and then Vishal and I will go back and forth and talk about our ideas and what we've seen happening both in the marketplace and in what implementers are doing with data products. So we hope to provide you with some conceptual background as well as some kind of on the ground implementation insights. Our agenda for today is we'll start off with a definition of data products, which is important because it's kind of a term that has come to mean just about anything to anybody. We'll then talk about what makes a data product a product, and this is an important point because I think this is what differentiates it from what we've done in the past. Then we'll talk about getting started with data products and the changes that may drive into your organization. We'll talk about the data product team and what kinds of skills and knowledge you need to be able to produce data products. Then we'll talk about the product delivery platform and the two constituencies that this platform has to serve. And of course, we're going to talk about governing quality, data quality and security. We'll recap with the key takeaways and then get to some of your questions. So with that, we'll dive right in and start with what is a data product. So this is my definition of a data product, which I'll just read, and then we'll unpack the definition, right? So a data product is a reusable data asset designed for a specific use, delivered according to agreed upon standards and schedules. Okay, so a data asset can take a lot of forms. It can be a raw data set. It can be a SQL view. It could be a recommendation engine. It can be a lot of different things. A data product is reusable in the sense that, it can be reusable in the sense that it can, within the scope of its functionality, it can have options for the data consumer, such as entering a date range or other request parameters that will provide the data set that they need in that moment. The other part of this is that it's designed for a particular use, and it's important to understand that a data product can't solve every problem for everybody, right? Yeah. So data products have a scope, and that can be a lot of different things, including a raw data set that is intended for, say, a data scientist to use as, to explore and find out what value it can offer. And then it's delivered according to agreed upon schedules, standards and schedules. So that's an important aspect of this, which we'll talk about in a moment in more detail, because that's really where the product part of it comes in. It's an agreement between the developers of the product and the stakeholders of the product about what will provide value and how can the consumers trust that the data will be timely and accurate. And so that's an important aspect of a data product. So Vishal, what do you think of that definition?
It sounds great, and I know, Jay, I think one of the ways when I believe thinking about data products is how can we take to your point, taking the principles of the product mindset and applying to the data set itself. Mm-hmm. One of the things which I have realized as a product manager is that how can when some problem is actually being asked, either you're writing a code to actually develop a software code, or the product code or a data code, you're trying to solve some kind of problems for an organization. And taking that problem and actually making sure that when you actually come up with a solution or come up with a product, how you're actually releasing the product, to your point, how the product is being consumed as a data product manager, how I'm actually understanding the consumption side of it. So taking, like, I mean, a small subset is like, how can I actually come in and apply the exactly same product principles which have been applicable on any code and extending that to data sets. So absolutely agree with that. That's me, like, because the reusable piece is one of the most important, because you don't write, let me give an example. When you don't build a code and rebuild the code again and again. You build a code which can be reused by multiple persona in the organization. And that is where I believe data products can help the organization across, and I think a few things mentioned, the data quality side of it. Because if you're reusing the same data set and data product, then the maintenance is actually on the data product which is being reused and which is actually being consumed a lot in the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess along those lines, one of the things that we've had an internal debate here vis-a-vis this definition, an internal debate within Eckerson Group is around the raw data set, right? If you produce a data product that produces, say, a churn score, right? That's a very defined output.
Yep.
However, the raw data set is something that you don't know what it's going to produce, but is that a use case in and of itself, and does that qualify, do you think, as a legitimate designed for a specific use? It may not require much design; it's just sort of some plumbing, but it leads to something else.
Exactly. So one thing you actually hit spot on, and I'm going to actually take this example as because there's a two, and then I have heard this actually in the community too. There's a data products sometimes actually get used as the source data products, which is coming directly from the raw data sets, and also the consumer-based data products, where it's actually attacking the use cases.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is, if you look at when the developers actually write code, there are two kinds of road code is being written. One for the internal consumption and making sure the developers are getting productive over time. And that's what I feel like, because if developers are actually reusing the code internally, which is not meant to be consumed by the data consumers, but meant to be consumed within the team itself, that they still want to actually use exactly the same principles of reusing the code or reusing the data set. And that's what I believe the raw data set or the source data sets could be treated as data product, but the consumer of that data product would be the internal team, and it would be developers to define the data product which can be consumed externally across in the organization or beyond the organization. I don't know if we have to label the source data products to actually be as what do you call the full metadata enriched, because the use case is very limited to some internal organization. But this is where for example, when you build something for external audience, the metadata and the standards has to be completely different based on who is going to consume the data product. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I think understanding part of designing for a specific use case is understanding who the use case is for, right? What is the persona that's going to consume this particular data, and then what is required to inform them about the product is very different depending on what that persona is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
One thing which I'd love to hear from you, Jay. I mean, as we're talking about data products, and you're in the Eckerson Group, how have you seen what is data products evolving over last some time? Like, if I have asked you a question, let's say a year ago, what would have definition? If I asked a question a year later, how do you believe the definition will change?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because when I think the reason why we're all talking about data products has a lot to do with data mesh, right? Data mesh has brought the term into the spotlight. So when I first read, Zhamak's articles and the book, my first encounter of the term data product, that I kind of, going back to my background in data warehousing and business intelligence, like, oh well, I've been doing that for decades, right? But my understanding, and I think through the use of the term and everybody talking about it in forums like this, right, is I've come to really hone in on the customer aspect of it, right? It's not so much what the product is, it's how and why you built it. And that is the differentiating factor. And that is a great segue into the next topic. But to answer where are data products going, I hope that focus of being all about, what is valuable to the intended customer or stakeholder of the product, being the driving factor. That is what's going to guide you in developing a product and refining it over time, and being less about particular formats or infrastructure or any of that other stuff that people get, particularly on the technical side of the world, we get very focused on because it's necessary, but you really have to keep your eye on the ball, which is what is of value to the business and what business problem or opportunity are you trying to address.
Completely agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, that kind of brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about is what makes a data product a product. Well, we're just kind of talking about it a little bit, which is that customers or stakeholders, their needs and their value, what they value is what defines takes a data asset into being a data product, if that's how you've guided its development.
Yep.
And this is the data product mindset. And I do think that this is, we use the word mindset because this implies that you're really kind of changing your focus and the time in these terms.
Yep.
So and the figuring out what a stakeholder needs is that's never a journey that's a straight line, right? There are lots of twists and turns, and if you keep this mindset, then that gives you your North Star to navigate those twists and turns. Yeah, that's my feeling about what makes a data product a product. And so from your perspective, like how important is this data as a product mindset, do you think?
I think it's really important. The reason I think the conversation for a product is very much different in the organization than we just talk about, let's say, customer table or the orders table. One of the perfect example, again, taking any product, not just a data product, with any product, if in the product development cycle, there are a few things folks really care about it. How are you going to evolve? What is the next thing coming? How do you ensure that what kind of unit tests you have actually written on the product? How do you make sure the end-to-end test is running? And this conversation comes anytime when it comes to the product principles. And it's not just related to data, but any product principles, which is like testing. And then again, I have been asked this question every day. If we just release a product, who is consuming it? What use cases they're using it for? How many different vertical industries they can use into it? What use cases can it solve that? Again, if you take exactly the same question and apply to the data set and saying like, I'm going to actually create this, let's say the dashboard or the pipeline or whatnot, and then not just creating it because somebody asked me to create this, but asking the question like, what use cases it is solving? How often do we run the quality check on it? How often do we notify our consumers that we ran the quality check on? And as any product, data products also goes down. If it goes down, do we have a status page to notify our customer that your product is down? Do we actually tell our customers that now the data product is down and what actually steps we are taking to improve it and also ensure it doesn't happen again? So the point is like these exactly same pain has been felt as a part of data engineers or data consumer, but we don't apply exactly same principles which we have been applying into development cycle on the data development cycle. But if we apply most of the principles on the product to the data side of it, the most problems goes away because the data consumer comes in and take a look. Like, I know this data quality check ran yesterday. I know that this product was refreshed this morning. I know the new tables, columns of metadata was updated, and those are visible to the consumers. They also know that when is the next cycle of update is coming. They can subscribe to the update, and there are a lot they can do around this to be informed, not to be just told, because the word which I like to use as a data product mindset, it's telling a customer, if I tell somebody, you should use this product, it's amazing. The first question they'll ask, do you have any reviews? How you're using it? How do I verify this is usable? And the same question the consumers are, I've been told to use this to drive some business insight, but how do I verify this, the quality standard on this data product is high or low?
Yeah, exactly. When you think about it, what we're talking about is trying to bring, these product development techniques, which are well established. And if you think about it in terms of, retail products, right? You're going to buy a pair of, running shoes, right? Nobody, you got to try them on. You have to have a way of understanding, do they meet your needs, that kind of thing. And and this is, I think, all part of this product mindset, and that is all being driven by providing value to the customer. And that can be, I think, in some cases, especially for organizations that have been delivering data analytics resources through the sort of the old world of warehousing and BI, is that mindset, that those teams all want to provide value, right? But how you do it isn't necessarily something that they practice along the lines that we've been talking about. So from your perspective, is this mindset something that comes naturally to, from what you've seen amongst your customers, or is it a challenge to adapt to?
Well, I think the problem happens, like if you look at the data, I also question, like, I don't think it comes naturally, but I know the customers want to do that. That's the way I mean by that. Let me give an example. When we write, when we write any code, we just want to, the first natural instinct is like, let's just ship it. And how many times they've heard that, let's test in production? I mean, no, don't test in production, but let's ship it. The point, because like the quality standards, if you see over the time, has been built really strongly, and especially when it comes to the SaaS products or whatnot, it's built very strongly because what you are producing is getting continuously consumed by your consumers. When we think about data set, and this is again totally my opinion, but talking to customers, is that why FC doesn't come naturally is because when you're like, I'm going to build this data set, I'm going to create this, I'm going to do some exploratory analysis, and then worry about the quality standards later. And at some time, that quality piece drops in the priority.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's so funny you talk about that ship it mentality. I've been there, and it becomes an end unto itself, which is, I think, where you kind of can go down the wrong path sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, this is why, I mean, I want to like to use the analogy with software as a service. I mean, if you look at like, like something which you ship on a disk, I mean, the disk doesn't exist anymore, but something you ship, and then, there's a development happens and you actually build something and you test something and you actually just, and then you test one piece in which gets actually shipped to the customers. Why I like to use software as a service principle here, because in the data world, you're continuously building and analyzing data because it's actually continuously being generated from your backend, which means that the quality standard should always be at the same time when you're actually creating a new data set or data product, or you're creating a new insight, which means the priority of the quality should be always the number one priority, should be actually part of writing the code as a unit test, writing some basic tests, and then actually understanding how the test has evolved over time, what does your test coverage looks like. So if we actually always think about continuously building and continuously quality check, then you don't have to worry about like, let's ship it, because you know that I have actually done some checks before we go into production. I don't have to just test in production. I also ensuring that tests are also being executed in my development cycle. So when I go to production, I go with some confidence, like why and when who's going to be consumed across my data consumers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk about getting started with data products, and we talk about getting started, not jumping in and trying to do a big bang for every data need, and starting small with a couple of well-defined use cases. And I think it's important where the business value of those use cases are pretty well understood, and also that the business units that you might be working with are kind of bought into this approach, and can commit to participating in the iterative development process, right? So what when it is starting small with data products like universally good advice from what you've seen?
Absolutely. I mean, it's also starting small and starting like what kind of, like, again, if I actually say that let's and again, same cycle, like we need to write like 10 lines of code, but 100 lines of quality check on it. That's also not advisable, because you're actually not trying to find the product market to fit into the data set or the business insight you're trying to drive. So starting small into find the use case, not just like I'm going to go actually tackle all the possible use cases with data product.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe why starting small, because data products could be completely foundational in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Means that you can create smaller set of data products, data sets, see how it's getting adopted, and then you can build on the top of the data products, which means you can secondary and tertiary data products. So I think it's starting small doesn't mean that it's going to be always small. Starting small to actually understand how easy it is to go on the path of the adopting, and also encouraging and creating those data products.
Yeah, and I think another aspect of it is that depending on where a given organization is, this can be a very different approach, right? So it can drive a lot of change into how people operate within their roles, and you have to be able to accommodate and be prepared for those changes, and not try to do too much at once. What within your organization's culture, how well do they consume change and adapt to new ways of doing things is also part of the benefit of starting small, is that it lets you understand that and mitigate any issues that come up over a different approach. So along those lines, how have you seen organizations implement data products differently to fit their particular needs? You have a couple of examples maybe of different approaches that your customers have done.
Yeah, I mean, see, one thing which I say that like starting small is like, I think the same product principle, like fail fast too. And then why? Because not every product being built, again, whether it's data product or not, is going to be being adopted. Some gets really heavily adopted, some do not. So to your point, starting small, understanding the use cases and consumption pattern in the organization. And then also starting small to make sure that it's repeatable and reusable into different tools of your choice. What I mean by different tools for your choice is that in the organization, basically the size of the organization, sometimes folks may have one or two tools to actually transform the data set, some like one or just one tool to actually consume the data set, and there are multiple tools of choice. So how can we actually understand what is the tools being used in the organization, which tools are used for what purpose, which tools is being adopted more, and then which tools are not just the use cases, but which tools are getting used to actually consume the data product, either in the dashboard side of it or in the transformation side of it. So it totally fits into the organizational need and the culture too, which is, again, to your point, if I go talk to the need of data product in the bigger banking industry, the need will be very much different. Their processes will be very much different. They probably need to go through like like I'm going to GitHub reviews, like about like 3 or 4 GitHub reviews before they actually go. But if you go talk to in a small business organization or a mid-market, they're like, now it's like, let's actually go and figure out what is a use case and product to market fit before we actually have 10 different processes on it. So it's again, the same concept comes in, like based on the size of the organization and trajectory and maturity you have on the processes may look very different. Even the review process may look very different based on the outcome and the efficiency you're trying to achieve over some time.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you there. I wanted to just briefly touch on what you said about failing fast and acknowledge that, this is also part of an organization's culture, right? Within the software engineering world, this is a principle that is well accepted and foundational, actually. But within different organizations, fail is not necessarily a welcome word, right? Whether you do it fast or slow.
Yes.
So, this is also part of how you have to understand where your organization is. And that concept of being willing to allow folks to fail fast is part of the organizational change that adopting a data product method can entail, right? So, yeah. All right, well, let's talk about what you need, what in terms of the people to build a data product. What kind of a team do you need? We've been talking about working closely with business stakeholders as a very key part of it. So business domain knowledge is very important. You expect to get that mostly from the stakeholders that are going to participate in the team, but it also helps, I think, if there are others on the team that also understand that the business domains, operations and challenges and opportunities. You also need technical skills, data engineering, data analysis. You need participation from your infrastructure and InfoSec teams, right? And then very important is you need the product delivery skills, right? If you have a data product, it's going to have both strategic and tactical aspects of its life cycle. And you need someone who can be the quarterback or the manager of that process, which is what I'm calling the data product owner. And I think that's the role that kind of holds everything together. That's the role that is the glue that makes all this work, right down to executing and delivering, iterations early and often, right? So what are your thoughts about the importance of the data product owner role?
I think data product owner role is really important role. One thing I would like to say, like sometime I've seen and the data engineers actually playing that role. Like, I mean, the role doesn't have to be one person playing the role, but the responsibilities of the role has to be played by somebody in the development cycle. It could be played by a developer. It could be actually have a completely new role based on the size and scale of the organization. But taking to the point, like why this role is important is because in any organization, you're getting multiple requests from your business stakeholders. Somebody may ask for again, I'm going to use one of the pictures, budget breakdown. Like, how can I actually use understand the budget of my the whole thing? Somebody may ask, like, I want to understand how can I actually what is my leads look like? So there are always like multiple requests coming on to the team. What I believe is that the data product owner is the person who actually understands the strategic direction the organization is taking, also taking those requests from business stakeholders, from their customers, and prioritizing it. Basically, like which one is a high priority for the business, which one is lower priority. Once prioritizing it, also then collaborating and bringing the product requirements with the help of the developers and consumers to understand what is their need, how long their need is for. Is it need for just 3 days need, or is it need for like a few? Is something can already be solved and available as data product in the organization? Because sometimes the question comes in, and then when as a data team, sometimes they actually start working on the request without understanding. There might be another data product, and again, I'll go to the reusable term. There might be another data product which already exists, which can be reused for the request, which we just heard from the business stakeholder. And this is why data product owner, the responsibility is really important to make sure that they are getting almost all the requests or prioritizing requests and responding to the business stakeholder, also the actually being involved into marketing it and actually making them understand which are the new products are recently released and understanding consumption. Because if the data product, which was popular 3 months ago, but nobody is using it right now, there's a time to deprioritize, deprecate the product and move on to something else instead of actually spending cycles on that. And instead of actually everyone doing that, one person's responsibility doing that enables the developers and data engineers to actually focus on the getting the right data into the right data consumers.
Yeah, I think that's right. And along the lines about collaboration also, which is key. And I think the data product owner is sort of the key facilitator of that collaboration. Going back to what I said before, is that understanding what the need is and what will be valuable to a given stakeholder is not a straight line. Oftentimes, what the problem or the request that's presented is, the stakeholder themselves may firmly believe that's what they need or want, but then when you start to show them data and they start to drill into the process, it becomes something else. And I think an important aspect of the product mindset is that's okay, that's good, that's what you want to happen. Whereas in the old world, that was, oh my God, changing requirements, now we have to go back and re-estimate and so forth and so on, right? This is a natural process and then that collaboration has to happen and be ready to go where it's going to take you. But you need somebody who's kind of watching over the whole process to make sure that we're driving towards something of value. And I think that's an important aspect of the data product owner role. And to also go back to what you said before is that this is a role that somebody needs to fill, but it doesn't need to be necessarily, it can be somebody else, somebody who's doing something else on the team, for example, right? And I think that's, you said it, according to the scale of your organization, you may have a data team, a data product team with 12 people on it. You may have one with 2 people on it, right? But you need to have these skills and these roles. Somebody's got to wear those hats, basically. And as long as you know that you've got them covered, then.
Absolutely. I mean, even like if you look at any startups or a small organization, the product manager is not the first person to be hired.
Yes.
You normally come in the organization probably 2 years or 3 years which means that somebody is playing that role to understand how and what to be built and when to be built and how this things to be extensible, which means that as with the scale of the organization, I believe this role can be played by anyone initially. And based on the demand and based on the scale of the data products in the organization, this role could be a one-person role. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep it moving here and talk about the data product delivery platform. And I talk about this, I've labeled this prepare for success, right? Because if you do well, you're going to need a way to make this process, take all the friction out of the process as much as possible, right? So as we said earlier, there are 2 constituencies that the platform has to serve. Data consumers need to be able to discover products, understand what they do and what they don't do. And that can be done through, descriptions and sample data and even sample code, depending on, who the product is aimed at. And they have to be able to trust the data. They have to know where it's coming from and what its quality standards are. And is today's iteration of the data meeting those standards, or did something happen upstream that has knocked it off kilter, right? And then, a key thing is that you have to be able to access the data, right? And if a given consumer doesn't have the privileges to access it, they need an easy workflow to be able to request that access and have someone informed approve it, or not if it's not appropriate. So the platform needs to do those things for the consumer. And then you have the developers, and their developer cycle is build, test, deploy, and what you were talking about earlier is observe, right? Observe the uses, observe how it's operating in production, observe, bottlenecks that you may need to take up with other folks in IT, et cetera. So I think, when we talk about the these two aspects of the platform are the consumer side of it is keeping the focus on what will deliver value and make it possible for consumers to find what's of value to them. And then on the developer side is to take the friction out of their process so that they can also focus on building what's of value, focusing on that collaboration with the stakeholders, except as opposed to the mechanics of pushing iterations out through the release process. So from your perspective, what do you think are the critical features of a data platform for consumers that will help them trust a data product?
I think I think you covered it very neatly. It's the complete full life cycle. And then I think anytime the product needs to be built, it has to be built in the mindset of consumers. For example, if the life cycle, we are spending the resources to build something, the months and weeks and whatnot, in the end, that cannot be even discovered, that is not getting consumed, then organization just spent the number of days building, which no one is using it. And that is one of the biggest challenge when it comes to the data world, because, in every cycle, like every product or whatnot, people talk about product, people talk about releases and everything. But the data set, when there's something is curated, something is transformed, it only gets in the hand of the user who has asked initially. And the other consumers, other in the organization, never either get to understand that there's a dashboard exists in my organization, which gives me full insight into what my trend of usage looks like. Sometimes people get surprised, wait, this already exists? I didn't know this exists. So the point is like today, if you look into it, the one consumer who has a request, go to data team, they ask for it, they build just for that one consumer, and that's the end. But instead of one consumer, let's actually make it to the 10 or 20 consumers. Then going to the product cycle where we don't build for just one customer, but we build for all the customers. So how can we build something which can be easily not only discovered from all the consumers, but they can understand it. They can even understand, they can ask for access that you talk. Like I see the data set, oh, I believe this report or this actually data set will be great for my dashboarding tools. How can I build and enhance in my dashboarding tools? Then instead of actually spending the time finding who's the owner, how do I get the access, how do I actually go through it, spending multiple days on it, I just wanted to just create the insight. So how do we enable consumers so they are not frustrated and they are not in this cycle of just finding the right data before they can even build the insight?
I totally agree with that. So much has been talked about and written about the pain of going through the process of figuring out what data is out there, figuring out who owns it, what it consists of, how it's constructed, and so forth. So that the platform has the extent to which the platform can make it a very smooth process, the more value you're going to get out of your data products. And I think I want to also kind of highlight what you said about discovery, because let's face it, one of the ongoing problems of any kind of analytics delivery process is inevitably demand outstrips capacity to develop it, right? So the more you can help consumers realize that there's something out there that solves their problem already, the fewer requests you'll get to develop duplicate products, which then becomes detritus in your landscape that you then have to manage, right? So now you've got two versions of the same output, and they diverge in terms of how how they transform the data, and now you've got two different answers to the same question. These are the problems that we've been struggling with literally for decades, right? This is an opportunity really to address that.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I'll also add, like how many times, and again, I do all the times, but I'd love to hear that we have the exactly same dashboard built 3 times or 4 times in my organization. Because what happens, like data consumers, they are always being asked by the business stakeholders to give them insight, data-driven insight. And then they're like, oh, we have a pressure to actually close the deal. We have the pressure to these quarterly something commitments, and data consumers feel that heat. And instead of them wasting their time to figure out how to actually figure out data exists, like I'll just do it myself, and let me just do it myself, and I'll fulfill this request, and then I'll meet the timeline. But over the time, what happens, like the duplicacy of many data sets happening creates quality problems, and also the discoverability problem, and also thus creates maintenance and increases TCO for the organization. So,
Yeah.
so that's totally, completely agree into what you're saying on the consumer side.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna move us along because we're coming down the home stretch here on time. So, perfect segue into governing data quality and security around data products, right? So, again, going back to this scenario where you're successful and data products are helping put the, data in the hands of more people, that can be transformative for an organization. But the other possibility is that it can devolve into chaos, some of which we were just talking about, right? Where you have duplicate products and so forth. So it's really important to establish the right controls around data products. And that refers to the metadata about the data products, documentation, data quality standards, data security standards. All of these things are important to establish as policies.
Yeah.
But then for me, the flip side is you can't expect to enforce those policies manually, right? So automated enforcement is another key aspect of actually applying governance, right? And that, so for example, in terms of data quality, automated validations, profiling, cleansing, and highlighting of data quality issues, right? This is sort of in the, that's in the observability realm, right? And then on privacy and security, automated data classification, masking and encryption, and granular application of controls on data. This is a way to protect the data and at the same time liberate it for more use, with the assurance that you're not going to be violating regulations or privacy rules, right? So.
No, I absolutely agree. One thing, I mean, going back to Sadaki, the governance is really, really important, because there are different personas, to your point, Jay, is in the organization. You have vendors coming in who might be doing some work for you, who may need exactly same access to data, but in a very different anonymized way or masked way, or different roles or different set. But you could also have different internal users who actually may need full access to data.
Yeah.
Instead of the one thing I believe is that the less number, let me actually give an example. I wish there was only one table. If there's only one table, the less quality rules, which means that the more copies you have, the more quality problems you'll have in the organization. What I believe what data governance can do, it can actually, on data access, can actually control. And before you build the quality checks on all the data set, how can we even make sure the data is not getting replicated again and again for different use cases, by ensuring a single point of governance, single point of place to govern a decentralized governance for across all your cloud, all your data source, all the data sets, all across your region. So, and goes to like automated policy enforcement, like based on learning into this vendor is coming, how do I scale and manage the policy at scale?
Yeah. So do you have any examples from your customer base on approaches they've used for governance and automating it that have worked?
I mean, we have few customers who I can even give an example of one of our customers, the great bank, and the what they actually think about is that the more copies you have, the more maintenance you have. Thus, human error is actually a lot higher. one of the reasons why they use Starburst is that containing the Starburst allows like basically the decentralized management of your data set. And you don't have to manage your policies into multiple places. It all can be managed in single place while you're consuming the data set. And which can be extended into the different tools of your choice to manage the policy. This is just like saves our customers the time to just understand the quality issues. Now, let me give one more example of customer. The quality issues, I may just fix the quality issues, let's say on Lake, but I have a quality issue on warehouse. I want to actually just combine the data set between a warehouse and a lake and give the insight to the consumers. I believe the lake is a good quality data. I don't know about the warehouse because that quality is being managed by a completely different team and a completely different platform. As a user, I am doing my best to manage the one side of it, but I don't know how the other is being managed. What happens is like having a different tools for different set of different set of let me actually not tools, different set of processes for different set of the warehouses or lake creates a quality nightmare because everyone has a different standard. One of the ways what we can do is that we actually bring a single standard and single policies over all the data set across all the region. And this is why, as I said, like we have a few big financial and also a couple of companies who are just using to maintain all the quality stuff into a single place. So even something breaks, they are not jumping across multiple tools or getting notified in multiple tools to actually understand the overall process and quality and access stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, I wanted to ask, but I think you basically just answered it. Is like, is it even really feasible to consider, having a robust data governance without the automated enforcement side of it these days?
I mean, at the point, like it's possible, but how many number of resources will have to actually do that? I mean, I mean, this is where the number of terms have been formulated in recent years. But the point is that data is evolving at a pace that's hard to manage without having automated things in place. Is by the time my consumer demands have changed, by the time the consumers are watching, something has changed, and everything changing creates the data set, and thus my insights are changing. So how do we actually be on the top of my consumer demands? How do I top of my data sets creation? How do I actually be on top of my schema evolution, while also maintaining sure that I'm still continuously building and governing my data set? So having some sort of automated policy governance or single place to maintaining policy governance becomes really important as for a growing organization.
Yeah, and I think this is really important around the security and privacy issues, right? And there are, well, the automated enforcement of what we call the granular cell level application of policies, right? As opposed to role based, right? This is something that's the new generation of tools around security are really doing it at a much more granular level. And I'm honestly surprised the extent to which companies are still not really understanding that that's table stakes capabilities, right? It's not optional. You have to have that.
Like again, like if you think about policy, like there are many organizations, they even if the early stage, I mean, including Starburst, they operate in multiple countries and multiple regions, which means that if I want to govern the data sets into two different regions or two different cloud, I have to be into both places and govern those and also understand the regulations, which means that there's all the chances of getting that wrong because I'm actually watching it here and then I'm watching different places is higher. The intent is that how do I actually bring all those in a single location so I have a visibility into what are things are breaking, and because something broke in the Europe region may also affect the US policies how I need to apply. And so how do I actually look into it? Then again, there are use cases why I want to govern the granular policies by using resource-based access control. But at the same time, I want to make sure anytime I have hired the vendors, they get access to this data set based on the attributes they come in, based on the reason they actually work on it. How do
Yeah.
I also manage using the attribute-based access control? And those two approaches has to be, it cannot be either or, it has to be based on the use cases customer end up using both together. And that is the policy we apply at the Starburst.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we should do our little wrap up here and then open and take a look at the questions that we've accumulated along the way. All right. So our key takeaways here, and feel free to chime in here as we go, Vishal. So I say put the product in data product, focus on stakeholders' needs, right? Fit your organization's culture, especially with respect to the degree of change this, a data product approach represents, and start small so that you can accommodate the areas of friction that may arise. Collaboration is key. Business participation is key. If you're going to focus on stakeholders' needs, you need to collaborate with stakeholders, and they need to collaborate with you in the development process. Data product platform, it's very important to understand that it should serve two constituencies, the data consumers and the data developers. And then automated governance enforcement, right? It's great to have policies, but if they're not getting enforced, they're not doing their job. So anything you want to add to that?
No, this actually covers all of it. I think one thing I'll stress is the data product platform is in the need I've seen from the customers, where not is maybe built for developer, but also actually where it brings the consumers to understand the data set. Like I use the example of App Store. How many times we actually go on Apple App Store or the Android? I'm like, I want to look at the reviews before I download it. I want to see what use cases. I mean, people even they download the app, they actually look at the reviews and whatnot before they actually download and install it. And similar, I believe there is a platform is needed in this data and the analytics world, where the data consumers and data producers are working in tandem, giving insight and building for the business.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's see what we've got in terms of questions. What is a data asset to begin with? Well, I think that probably came up earlier, so sorry we didn't get to it until now. But that's it's a lot of it can be a lot of different things. It's basically, I think one way of putting it is that it's a data product that didn't have the product mindset applied to it, right? So if in the past you built a dashboard because somebody said, I need a dashboard about, what last month's sales were, and you push it out, that is a data asset, and it may be valuable, but if it wasn't really done as part of that product development cycle, where you're working with a customer and really trying to understand what the questions they're trying to answer and what the business value of knowing those answers is, then that's what makes it a product. Okay, so another question here is, are BI tools like Tableau, Qlik, Power BI, are they products or tools for developing products? What do you think, Vishal?
So, I mean, the thing is, like any data set which brings insight can be a data product. But I also want to say that, and I'm glad the examples came in Tableau, Qlik, and Power BI.
Yeah.
How can we ensure the products are reusable in the sense of Tableau, Qlik, and Power BI? So based on the organization, you can treat a dashboard into a Tableau as a data product. But if you're using, let's say, Qlik and Tableau and Power BI together in the organization, then how do you actually ensure that the dashboard built in Tableau is also reused in Power BI? And that's why I believe that there's no right or wrong answer. But what I inherently believe that the more the products can be created close to the source and the query engine itself, will make sure that all the tools which are going to consuming is for transformation. We can use DBT, or for the actually consuming it, which could be Tableau, have the exactly same source of the truth, then otherwise people will be, again, there's another problem in the quality, which I mentioned. I created something from dbt, but but I have also transformed the same thing in Tableau. Now I've actually have two different maintenance
Right.
cycles.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, you know, that these tools are tools for making, potentially for making data products, right? So a dashboard, like we said earlier, in and of itself is not a data product. It depends on how you develop it. So if you use that product mindset to develop a dashboard with any one of those tools, then it's a data product. And if you keep in mind the reusability of it, if you're using a common data back end, as opposed to, you know, pulling in a raw data set and doing a bunch of transformation in the tool, which is only available to those using that tool, then you're, you know, that's not so much a data product, I guess. Yeah. All right, let's see. There we go. So I think we don't seem to have any other questions, so I guess we can wrap it up. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Yeah, I just want to call out, like, again, coming from Starburst, I mean, we have a great initiative happening on the data product side of it, on the things which we just discussed. I also see, keep an eyes on our couple of announcements coming out next week around the our Starburst Galaxy and the great things we are building. And I don't want to spill the beans in this call, but keep an eyes on LinkedIn and other places on the Starburst, and follow Starburst to understand the announcement on Starburst Galaxy. And we are launching a couple of really cool and amazing stuff to manage, build your data products, and also go on data products.
All right. Well, very good. I guess with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for attending.